Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about the government's response to Donald Trump's pretty cheeky motion to recuse Judge Tanya Chutkan from the January 6th Jack Smith case. Now, remember, we talked about this when he made it. Among other things, he waits 42 days, and that's not how it works with recusal. If there's some problem with things she had said before, you don't wait to see how the initial rulings play out before making your charge. But second, what he's relying on, Trump, is a couple comments she made among the dozens and dozens of cases that she sentenced of the January 6 marauders. She points out that you did it in fealty to a person who hasn't been charged, to one defendant, to another. She talks about the higher-ups who maybe planned this. And Trump seizes on these comments to try to say her impartiality could reasonably be questioned. It's not a very strong motion, and the government comes in with a very hard-hitting response saying, first, as to these two comments, they were cherry-picked out of context if you look at the whole sentencing hearing. And what it's clear that they are in context is her responding to arguments that the defendants are making in trying to have her impose a lighter sentence. Their supposed mitigating evidence. I was just I came because of the president. It's not my fault, and the like. She responds to those arguments more generally. For a judge to draw some kinds of conclusions about the conduct of a defendant or even the overall profile and landscape at a sentencing hearing is impeccable. That's what they do. That is when, in the voice of the community, they, peer eye to eye at the defendant and explain why she or he is getting the sentence that they are. And, that's just what happens at a sentencing, so it really doesn't amount to anything. And in fact, the Department of Justice, Jack Smith, did a stronger point, which is in terms of comments like this on the bench, it's a special kind of even very difficult standard to try to reach for recusal. And there's law that they rely on that basically says, when it's something like that, it's only in the rarest of cases that those kinds of comments could ever be the basis for recusal. So it's basically, look, when a judge is doing her job or his job, and that's what this really is, because what you do at sentencing, you review facts, you respond to arguments and the like. To quote the law, in court statements like this, quote, almost never give rise to a recusal. And I think Chutkan herself in the first instance will rely on that doctrine in swatting this effort aside. And I don't think there's any basis to appeal it for now. They could try to do it, later after a conviction. It's an interesting aspect of many of these rulings. If Trump winds up getting acquitted, they all go away because you can't try him again, and the government can't challenge them. If he winds up getting convicted, he'll have a bunch of things he can challenge on appeal, and he might sort of lob this in among them, but it's really sort of going nowhere. Moreover, we talked about this. It certainly doesn't endear him to the judge or his lawyer, John Lauro, to the judge to be saying this shows how, that you're biased and trying to sort of rub these comments, which were perfectly proper under the circumstances that are more or less obscured in the Trump motion. Perfectly proper for her to have made. So DOJ comes in with a very strong response for Chutkan to consider, and it adds this extra point that it's extremely rare, not just at sentencing, for any kind of in-court statement to be the basis for recusal. So we'll see what she does with it, and that will be final for now, unless he's convicted and wants to try to challenge it later, but it wouldn't get any traction then. but that's one of, a whole flurry of motions that we can now expect to be coming Chutkan's way now that we're roughly in a sort of pretrial setting. So, recusal motion based on in-court statements, almost never the basis for recusal, and this won't be either. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.